Here we go. The Rams are trading Brandin Cooks and a 2022 fourth-round pick to the Texans for a second-round pick in this year's draft. Cam Cooks, your former teammate, how do you feel about him playing on his fourth team now in just 5 years?
I thought he had found a home with the Rams. When it comes down to it, my guy is a talent. I mean, when you say Brandin Cooks, I automatically think 1,000-yard receiver, and then I have to look at the stats and say he didn't get 1,000 yards last year. We also saw seemingly a lack of targets last year, and I can't really depict why. This is one of your guys who can stretch a field. He can run a lot of different routes. He can bring that speed to you, and he has sure hands. So for him to have a decline in targets, maybe it's time for him to find a home with the Texans. You have a playmaker, a dynamic at the quarterback position, as you're going to find with Deshaun Watson. And now you bring in, after losing DeAndre Hopkins, you bring in Brandin Cooks. That's somebody that can stretch the field. So I understand it. I don't understand why the Rams let wide receiver like Brandin Cooks go.
Nick, you know what I say? Once a Patriot, always a Patriot. I'm happy for Brandin Cooks. I feel a little sad for him because when this trade was announced, I opened up my computer and there was just fire coming out of it towards Bill O'Brien. But Brandin Cooks is good. Don't let the Bill O'Brien decision-making cloud how good Brandin Cooks is.
Well, Brandin Cooks is good, but as Cam alluded to, he's coming off his least productive season, and unfortunately, he has had 5 concussions, including 2 last year, so you're concerned about his health long term. In regards to Bill O'Brien, the decision flow here is just a blind guy throwing darts. He has effectively traded DeAndre Hopkins for Brandin Cooks and David Johnson, while adding in Randall Cobb at $18 million guaranteed in a year where no receivers are getting paid when you already have Will Fuller and Kenny Stills, which makes a ton of sense given the fact they lost that playoff game because they couldn't score it. Oh, wait. They lost the playoff game because the defense allowed 51. And no, we don't need to address it, and we don't have any picks to address it either. Should be no problem. I do have a quick question for you, Cam Jordan. You've been very fortunate. Drafted by a team coached by Sean Payton. Excellent, not only coaching, but general managing. When you talk to friends across the league, and I'm asking you to name names, who maybe don't have the stability of franchise that you have, what type of impression do you get for players who are on teams that aren't as well run as yours that, man, I can do my job, but I'm not going to have the pieces around me? Because I fear that's what Texans players are feeling right now. What do you think of that, Cam?
I can sympathize with them in terms of having different D coordinators. That first 5 years I was in the league, I had 4 different D coordinators, from Greg Williams, Steve Spagnuolo to Rob Ryan, then of course Dennis Allen. That's a stretch where things get a little dicey. You don't know if you're their system guy. You don't know if you're a guy that can succeed in with the coaching staff, and at the same time, your best foot forward is always playing the best football that you can. And at the end of the day, it's about building the best team that you can try to put on the field. So when it comes down to, possibly being on another team, it's just like having another defensive coordinator for me. It's something that you're going to have to, one, learn a whole entire new system, adjust and adapt, and then be able to take to the field. As long as you're able to take to the field, I think there is no problem.
All right, let's talk a little bit more about this organizational mismanagement. Nick, I'll direct this to you. From the Rams' perspective, so Cooks is gone now. Gurley's in Atlanta. Jared Goff's coming off the worst season he's had under Sean McVay. Is the Rams' window now officially closed, do you think?
Yeah, I believe with this core, it absolutely is. People got very mad at me when around week 10, I said the Rams' Super Bowl window open and close like this, but we're now seeing it. Next year, Wilds, the single biggest cap hit in the NFL belongs to Jared Goff. Next year, the second biggest cap hit in the league belongs to the dead money for Cooks and Gurley for the Rams. So you have nearly 35% of your cap, if you're the Rams next year, goes to Goff and 2 players who aren't on your team anymore. While the Rams were very aggressive with early extensions, I'm always a fan of guys getting paid, but typically you want the players to actually last half of those extensions before you move on. I worry the Rams could be the worst team in that division this year, and that window open and closed with that loss to the Patriots, your beloved Patriots, that quickly, Wilds.
That's right. You know, Nick, there's a famous Wire quote. If you come at Bill Belichick, you better not miss. And they mortgaged their future to try to get to that Super Bowl. Their last first-round pick was Jared Goff. Then they sat back. They don't have a first-round pick this year. They don't have a first-round pick next year. It's just they've got 4 seconds this year, so maybe they'll be able to pull something off. But this has just been a disaster, Cam. I don't think you need to worry about the Rams. Although I know you have to say something nice. You're a current player, but you don't have to worry about the Rams.
You talk about what Jared Goff had a down year last year, but we also know that he can help his team get to a Super Bowl. It was a guy who, ended up in a Super Bowl 2 years ago. There's a team that, you lose your top running back in Todd Gurley, and everybody talks about, maybe he's, had a down year. Of course, he still ran for something like 800 yards. Todd Gurley is still a force to be reckoned with, and now I have to deal with him twice a year over at Atlanta. You can't sort of replace what Brandin Cooks has done. I mean, you don't have somebody who's stretching the field like that on the roster now. So if you say, the Rams are in a playoff picture, I'll just say, Sean McVay and Jared Goff can probably find a way to say that they are.
Okay.
All right, let's move on. New topic now. Cam, first off, congratulations on making the 2010s All-Decade Team. It is quite an honor.
Cam.
Unfortunately, your teammate, Drew Brees, was left off of it. You and Brees, you had Brees listed 4 times in your top 5 quarterbacks of the decade. If I recall, it went Brees, Brady, Brees, and then Brees. That's right.
Woo.
Cam, I'm guessing you think Brees got snubbed here.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the last decade, you see his stats, you see his percentage of completions, you see those eye-popping, was it 3 or 4 or 5,000 yard seasons in the last decade, and you say who was throwing the ball more, who has completed the ball more, who has scored more touchdowns, and the answer would be nobody. But then you look at Tom Brady and the way he's won 3 or 4 championships the last 10 years, and then I try and look at Aaron Rodgers and say, hey, look, he won a Super Bowl at the beginning of the decade, and since then, he's had some good seasons, but nobody's been more consistent. Nobody has been as special as Drew Brees has. So top 5 QBs of 2010, I put right there. And that might be me biased, so I might have to add in Aaron Rodgers at 4 and Cam Newton at 5, if I had to be realistic. But it would still be double. It would still be
Cam,
double
that's
Drew
you
Brees.
being a good teammate. Cam, that's you being a good teammate. Nick, I know you do a solo radio show, but I think you could learn a lot from Cam here. Unquestioned support for his teammates. So when Jenna and I say something, like, that's 100% right, Wilds, that's how you be a good teammate. Great job, Cam. You're setting a good example for Nick here.
Well, Wilds, you are 100% right that I do a solo radio show at night. You got something right today. I would like to congratulate you for that. Now I'm going to take advantage for the first time of social distancing. The fact that Cam Jordan can't reach out and lay hands on me when I say this. Man, I'm sorry, but Drew Brees was the 3rd best quarterback of the decade. The all-decade team's got two quarterbacks. Brady's got to be 1. Rodgers won an MVP, won 2 MVPs, pardon me. He went to a Super Bowl. He won a Super Bowl. Brees has happened the previous decade. I apologize. Those are the breaks. Dan Marino, one of the greatest quarterbacks ever, also never made an all-decade team. There's no shame in this, and I don't even want to let Cam Jordan respond, Jenna. I can feel his eyes just glaring all through me. Can we please move on?
We can, and we will. And you know what? I was going to try to reach through Wilds to get to, and I can't do it.
No.
A little basketball now. No, because we go Brady Bunch style. It never actually works that way. A little basketball now, where the horse competition is now officially set.
Yeah.
8 current and former NBA and WNBA players will participate. Here is your group, headlined by Trae Young, Chris Paul, and Paul Pierce. Cam, you're a baller. Who do you have winning this?
I think it comes down to, do you have to replicate the exact same shot? Because it comes down to it, Zach LaVine gets his turn. Nobody in this group is going to start dunking like Zach LaVine is. He'll never, he'll have too many guys being bounced out. But my money might be on Paul Pierce. Paul Pierce.
There we go.
I've joked with my friends. Like I call Paul Pierce the greatest recreational player of all time. Like there is nothing that Paul Pierce in his mind doesn't think that he can accomplish. I'm like, yo, there's no set defense. There's no set system. He gets in, and he just like, you're like, all right, well, you don't have to really worry about Paul Pierce drops 30. You know what? You do have to worry about Paul Pierce every time. We used to have a running joke between the friends, like, Cam, you play like Paul Pierce. I'm like, because I don't have a set position. I get in and I create plays. And that's exactly what Paul Pierce does.
That's right, Nick. Truth hurts. Truth hurts. Paul Pierce is going to take this home. I love Mr. Big Shot, too. I don't know if the big shots extend over to Horse. Those are both my guys, but I'm going to go with the truth here.
All right, okay. Hey, with respect, what the hell are you guys talking about? Here's the power rankings of this. CP3's the favorite. He'd be the 1 seed. Trae Young's the 2 seed. Can we put the graphic back up so I can see him? Tamika Catchings, one of the greatest players ever and a Hall of Famer. She's the 3 seed. Mike Conley Jr. is the 4. Allie Quigley's the 5. Zach LaVine's the 6. Chauncey Billups is the 7. Cam Jordan is the 8.
Oh, you're
Kevin
insane.
Wildes is the 9. And then Paul Pierce comes in at the 10. Unless Paul Pierce is bringing a wheelchair with him and he can do maybe a few shots from there because he's got some practice at that, he's got no shot. He's drawn dead at this. He knows he's drawn dead at this. Oh, my God, Wildes. Wildes, admit your biases. Your job isn't to be unbiased. Your job is to admit your biases. You used to work with Paul Pierce. You're friends with Paul Pierce. You and Paul Pierce used to both talk about your mutual dislike for me, and so now you're bringing it up on this show. Pierce would be the last pick eligible in this. We all know it. Jenna, go ahead.
All right. I want to get to this last one. We don't have that much time left. We're going to end talking some breakfast. Patrick Mahomes recently tweeted out, quote, I'm trying to get some KC barbecue soon. So, Cam, we got to ask you, better food, Kansas City or New Orleans?
That's not a real question. You go to Kansas City for barbecue, for, the vinegar-based barbecue sauce that they put on, slather on everything. In New